Kia ora everyone, my name's Leki Jackson Bourke. I'm a freelance creative artist and I work mainly in the performing arts sector as a choreographer, a writer, an actor, a dancer, and sometimes I jump into producing, directing, and stage management stuff as well. It's really hard to be a freelance artist, so you gotta wear multiple hats and just continue to work different jobs in order to survive. So that's my reality. One thing I really love is writing. So I'm a writer, I'm a playwright, and I've written a few plays now. So I'm just going to talk today a little bit about that journey of playwriting and the love of storytelling, because I love to tell a good story. Who or what inspired you to write? I guess my inspiration for writing comes from real life experience and what happens in the real world. I use my writing as a response to like social issues, as a response to stuff that I see in my community that's happening. So myself, I'm a New Zealand born Pacific Islander. My parents were both migrants here. My dad is Tongan, Niuean, and my mum is Samoan, Niuean. So a lot of my plays that I've written have been bilingual. They incorporate the Pacific language into them. And the reason I do that is so that it can be accessible to people who are not really familiar with different kinds of texts. So the initial thing that inspired me to actually write was when I was in high school, and I struggled with learning Elizabethan theatre. So for those of you that do drama, if you have a drama class, there's a type of theatre called Elizabethan or Shakespeare plays, and I struggled with the language and I felt so dumb, and I thought like, oh, this is not for me. I don't know what to do. I can't connect with the words, with the text. So what inspired me to write was the initial challenge, and then wanting to create my own stories and my own text that I could relate to. So I did a lot of work around that, and when I was in high school, we wrote our own year 13 7th form drama play, which was so cool because it had all our voices and all our stories chucked into it. And I guess from there, I kind of knew I sort of wanted to be a writer, but I didn't actively pursue it. Why did you choose to write? Why did you choose to write? That's one of the reasons I chose to write, is because there weren't enough texts that I could relate to, or there wasn't enough literature that I felt connected to as a young New Zealand-born Pacific Islander. When I was in high school, there were a few Pacific theatre and Māori plays that we used to do. I would do the same ones over and over again because there wasn't enough resource, so we didn't have like tons of plays to choose from. We just had like Oscar Kitely's one play or Dave Armstrong's play, and then that was it. Like the genre was so limited. But I went to high school in Central Auckland, Marsland College, and like 90% of my class were Pacific Islanders. So we all had the same struggle. We all couldn't connect with Elizabethan theatre and literature. So I decided to write from there. And when I went on to study in drama school, I started to refine my writing skills. I never like called myself a writer. Like I was never like, oh, I'm a writer, because I always thought you had to be this brainy academic person to be a writer. And when I was in high school, I was actually in the English unit standards class. So for me, I was in the lowest English class. I wasn't good at English. My writing was terrible. My sentence structure was all over the place. And I didn't really know how to write properly. But I knew I had a heart for storytelling and a passion for storytelling. So I knew how to jump up and do an impromptu speech, or I knew how to jump up and sing a song. Because I grew up in a Pacific Island church where we just perform a lot, and we sing and dance. And so to me, those are all forms of storytelling. I just, writing for me was just refining it into like words and into text, which has been a challenge for me, and it's still a challenge now. Still learning today. Why is a particular story important to you? I usually connect with the story if it's relevant to my experience. I think a lot of people are like that. Like, I like stories that I can connect to. I like stories where I go, oh, hey, I know someone like that. Or the character reminds me of like my auntie. And then I go, oh my gosh, I have an auntie exactly like that. Or like there's a circumstance that's relevant to me growing up here in Auckland. So like there are a lot of like different kinds of texts and literature and books and stories that I like that are not like from a Pacific lens, but I can still relate to them because the story's like universal, it has universal themes in it. Um, so that's how I connect to a story. But I'm a really big character person. So when I read plays and when I perform plays, I love looking at character development. I love how the way characters talk. For one of my research projects for a script that I wrote, it was based on my younger cousin. So for my research, I put the phone on the table and I recorded their conversation because they were talking in slang and I couldn't understand what they were talking about. And then afterwards, I made like a glossary. So I made this little glossary of words that my cousins were saying, and then I translated it into like normal English. But those are the kind of things I love to read because it's like an insight into another world, if that makes any sense. Were there any challenges for you while writing? How did you overcome these? Yes, there are definitely challenges, and there are still challenges now. I guess because the type of theater that I like to write for is Pacific theater, I have a tough time navigating the space within the community. There's a lot of sometimes there's backlash and sometimes there's controversy with some of the contemporary stories that I write because I draw from cultural experience, but I also draw from urban experience and contemporary. So me growing up in Auckland here, multicultural, there's so much outside influence, and I guess a lot of like traditionalists don't like that kind of stuff. Another challenge, definitely spelling. I'm not the best spelling person in the world, but thankfully we have Dr. Google now, and we have spell check. So yeah, that's big advice that one of my first ever writing mentors, Victor Roger, said to me was spell check. Yeah, so make sure you have spell check and make sure you utilize spell check. And English is a funny language because there's like American English and then British English and then Australian. Like there's variations of words and how you spell stuff. So that's always been a challenge for me, spelling, sentence structure. Like I said, when I was in high school, I wasn't in the brainy English class. I was in the lowest English class, English unit standards. But I had one teacher who always believed in me and always pushed me to keep writing and to keep trying. So she'd give me a chance to resubmit my essays and to do it again, and she'd give me like feedback and advice. And that's a really important part of the process when you're writing, is getting feedback from an outside eye, from a mentor, from someone older who can help you out, who can help you with your storytelling and your writing. When did you first begin to write? Funny story. So I pulled my old computer out of my garage, and on it I found a script that was from 2004, and it's the first thing I ever wrote. I was like 13 years old. And it was terrible. It was so bad. It's such a bad like little skit that I had written when I was like 14 or 13 years old in 2004. And that's the first time I actually remembered writing. And when I look back at it now that I'm a bit older and I have a bit more experience in writing, I look back and I laugh because it's heavily influenced by what was popular at the time. So in 2004, I think it was 2004, it might have been 2005. But I used to watch a series called Brotown that used to come on TV, and I used to steal all the lines from Brotown and put it in. I was heavily influenced by rap and hip hop culture. So you'll see in my old script, there's like lines from Tupac's rap or like from like famous popular songs at the time. So that's the first memory I have of actually writing something. It wasn't anything formal. And then I wrote again when I was 7th form, year 13, when we had to write our own high school play. So when I went off to drama school, I used to write little scripts as well. Not thinking anything of it. It was kind of just something you had to do, but I never actually thought I never actively I didn't actively seek a career in writing, if that makes sense. I'm actually not even trained as a writer, so I have no formal training as a writer. Um, but today I'm an award-winning playwright because I really believed in my story, and I pushed for my story to be told, and to write different plays that I could pass on to the younger generation growing up. So yeah, that's some word of advice for all you young ones out there who want to write. If you don't know how to write, that's absolutely fine. That's okay. Just if you have an idea or you have a story or you have something that you love and a passion, just pursue it, and then you can do all the technical stuff later, which is how I did it. Or you can just go and study writing, which is what some people do. How did you feel when you published your first book, your most recent? So I've only published one of my plays. How did I feel? Yeah, it was pretty surreal when my play was called Inky Pinky Ponky. I co-wrote it with one of my best friends in 2015, and it got published in a book called the Talanoa series, 4 Pacific Plays. I guess I was really happy because I thought back to when I was in high school and when I didn't have I didn't have enough resources, and I thought, wow, this is one more resource that's going to add to the high school repertoire of Pacific theatre. And then I thought, wow, this is awesome because people out there who are like me can read this and relate to it, and they'll have something that they'll connect to. And they might have their own experiences or might help them to dream about their own stories. So when you have all of that on your shoulders, it's a really humbling feeling, and it's really awesome to know that you can leave a resource behind. Yeah, that's how I felt when it first came out. I actually wasn't here for the launch. I was overseas doing another project. So FOMO, I was crying in my hotel room overseas while I was watching the launch online. But it was so cool, and it's so awesome to know that resource is now being used across the country. So now I've had like 4 or 5 different high schools perform our play, and they got it by reading the book. So it's awesome to know what the impact of the book can do. What is your most favorite series of books? I don't have a favorite series of books, but I have a favorite book, and it's called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. He is a Brazilian writer. I think he's Brazilian, but yeah, he's written this book called The Alchemist, and it's my favorite book. The reason why The Alchemist is my favorite book is because it's a book that inspires me to dream, to never give up on my dream, to pursue, no matter how hard life gets or how tough like circumstances are or how challenging your reality is. There's always a bigger picture, and I really learned that. I've read The Alchemist like 5 times. So the first time I read it, I didn't get it at all. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so dumb. I don't get this. I don't understand. Then I read it again 2 years later, and then I went, wow, there's something cool in this book, but I still kind of didn't get it. And then when I had a bit more life experience, I read it again like 5 or 6 years later. I just went, oh my God, this book is like gold. And I read it again in the beginning of this year, and I finished it during the lockdown, and it was so refreshing because it just kind of put everything into a life perspective for me. So I really love that book, and I recommend, if you haven't read it, then check it out, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. How do you come up with ideas? I surround myself with a lot of creative friends. So I have a lot of other friends who are writers and who are dancers, and I bounce ideas and stuff. We usually have what's called a table jam. So we'll sit around the table and we'll just jam out ideas, or a workshop or something like that. For me, I'm never really stuck coming up with an idea. So I don't sit around and go, what should I write about? My writing is usually in response to something that's happened, like an experience or something that's current. So or something that really annoys me. If something really annoys me, I write in response to it. I've never really called myself an activist, but I've always done activism through art. So even in high school, when I was in high school, we didn't have a hip hop dance group, and we didn't have one because the Catholic teachers thought it was evil and crumping was bad, and hip hop dancing was the devil. But we were able to show them and fight. We were able to fight and show them that it wasn't bad, and that it could be used as a form of worship and praise. And so we started our first hip hop dance crew at my high school in 2009. We had to fundraise for ourselves to buy our uniforms and stuff. But again, that goes back to that love of storytelling. Like, if you want to tell a story, you'll do anything to really tell your story. I wasn't even the best hip hop dancer or whatever, but I knew I just had a passion for it, and there was an obstacle. The senior management was the obstacle, and they did not want us to go there to the competition. But we went with the blessing of the school, and I had to write a proposal for that to happen. So that was me doing activism through art, because I really wanted us to dance and for us to be a dance crew, pretty much. So those kind of things inspire me to come up with ideas. Like our first play, Inky Pinky Ponky, we wrote because we didn't have. There was a time when I graduated from drama school, I didn't have any work. That's the reality of being an artist, is you don't have stable 9-to-5 work. There was a time when we didn't come up with work, and one thing that our tutors always said to us was, if you're not getting work, then make your own work. And that's what we did. I got together with a group of friends. We all came up with ideas, and one friend told us a particular story that made us all go, whoa. And then that was the initial starting point for writing a script. Another way I come up with ideas is I watch heaps of stuff, and I get inspired by watching things, or images, videos, whatever inspires you. Everyone's different. Some people like reading, some people like pictures, some people like moving, some people like singing. My personal style, I grab I grab stuff from everywhere, and I just chuck it in a big pot, and then I come up with ideas from there. Last piece of advice to anyone who wants to tell a story: tell it, and don't let anyone get in your way or anyone stop you from telling your story. It's yours. It's yours to share and to tell and to give to the world. And there's a famous quote that I really love and that I work by, and it's by a famous Tongan academic. His name is Epeli Hauofa, and Epeli Hauofa's famous quote is, "Let us not be defined by the smallness of our island nation, but by the greatness of our ocean." For me, and I guess for us, for New Zealanders, Kiwis living in New Zealand, and Māori Pacific, do not be defined by how small New Zealand is. So we live, to the rest of the world, we live on this little island that's away from everywhere else. But I guess what this academic Epeli Hauofa is saying is, don't be defined by the smallness of the island. Okay, so even in life or in writing or in whatever is relevant to you, do not think of yourself as small like this. Think of yourself as the greatness of the ocean. So always remember that when you feel lost or when you feel like you need to ground yourself. Just remember, New Zealand is in the biggest ocean in the world, the Pacific Ocean. So we all descend from that ocean. So think of that greatness whenever you're going to tell your story. And good luck.